Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Joel with Joel Suburban Farming, and I apologize about the bad sound quality and probably video quality. I'm recording on my iPhone. I average like 10 views a year on my videos, so at this point I'm probably not going to be investing in any fancy pants equipment. But today I'm going to be working on the Sears Suburban 10. This is a 1965. Let me show you here. Suburban 10. And this is actually kind of the last David Bradley style model that Sears made in 1965. And then they switched over to the style that y'all would probably be more familiar with, the Sears Suburban with the 6-speed transmission and all of that. This has a forward and backwards lever. It's all belt driven with a variable speed drive. Takes some getting used to. Can be a little awkward at times. What I'm going to be doing today is replacing my carburetor. I actually found a new old stock Walbro LME 37 carburetor on eBay. They haven't made them in quite a few years and they can be hard to find. And anyways, the old carburetor on this one's been, ever since I've had it, it's put down here, it's never idled right. Gotta have the choke out, and then you gotta push the choke in when you want to give a little gas and all that. It's kind of annoying. So, admittedly, I spent plenty of money on this new old stock carburetor, but after all, they're not making them anymore, and I'm planning to keep this tractor, so I thought, well, I'll just make the investment. But I thought I'd share a little of the history of the Sears Suburban tractors for me, as well as this particular tractor. Growing up, we had an ST16 Sears tractor that Dad had gotten from somewhere. It had been through a fire, so the hood was missing on it, and the dash was half burned up and all that, but he got it going, and we mowed with it for a lot of years when I was a kid, and it just seemed like one of those durable tractors, garden tractors, that was hard to beat. Eventually we traded it for some cheapo Cub Cadet thing or something, and in the early 90s. And anyways, I always appreciated that Sears tractor, and so eventually when I had first gotten married and I left home, we lived in the Chicago area, and I happened to see a ST16 for sale along the road and ended up buying it, and that kind of started this obsession with collecting Sears tractors. And not long after that, we ended up moving to the Cleveland area. I'm actually a pastor, so I had to go where the churches are that were looking for a pastor. So that brought us out to Cleveland, and that being in the suburbs, I ended up collecting quite an extensive array of Sears Suburban tractors and equipment, and ended up with most all the rare attachments over a span of a couple of years. And I don't remember how many different tractors I bought and sold a bunch, parted out some, collected a bunch. I mean, I had, I think, about at least three of the hydro versions, and a representative of every year that the Suburbans were made. And then ended up taking a job as a pastor back in Indiana, where I'd grown up. And so I've always been kind of a farm kid at heart, and we're kind of out in the country now, and so I wanted to upgrade from the garden tractors to something a little bigger, so I ended up selling my whole Sears tractor collection and ended up doing pretty good with it. I think it was about $5,000 or something for by the time everything was gone. And I ended up buying some Oliver tractors, and that's kind of what I've been into, the antique tractors for the most part. But I did keep this particular tractor, and the reason is there's kind of a sentimental story behind it. This tractor was owned by my neighbor growing up when I was a little kid, and he was an avid tractor collector of antique tractors and had, I think, about 100 of them when he passed away. But I can remember when he got this tractor from somewhere, it was missing an engine, and he had it, and it just ended up sitting out behind his shed for a bunch of years. Well, after I was married and moved away, he passed away, sadly, unfortunately, and they had an auction. And so I was newly married at the time, and we didn't have a whole lot of money, but ended up buying this tractor, and my wife kind of wondered what in the world she'd gotten into, which, by the way, she still feels that way, I guess, when it comes to the tractor obsession. So we got it, and we brought it home, and I ended up finding an engine. I bought an engine from a guy that, I think I got a whole tractor, if I remember the same kind of tractor, from a guy, I think his name was Lloyd, in Wisconsin, that had just a ton of garden tractors. And really nice guy. I think he was on YouTube for a while. I don't remember what his channel was called, but so got this engine together, ended up rebuilding the engine somewhere along the line, and this has kind of been my, I guess my, like I said, sentimental value tractor, and it's the only one I got left of the Suburbans, and I use it around the yard for different things, but it's always been annoying to start with the carburetor issue. And I can show you maybe later on what happens with these carburetors inside. I'll take it apart later and show you what the issue is or why they don't idle. And I always thought, well, I don't know if I need to do some extensive work. I've tried rebuild kits and it still leaks and everything else. So all that to say, I picked up this brand new old stock one. And I know it's been sitting on the shelf for a while because the gasket was... Okay, sorry about that. I ran out of storage on my phone, and so I had to delete a bunch of videos and all that and make sure I had them backed up on my iPad, stuff I wanted. But it always seems to be my problem and everything. Never enough storage, especially for tractors and all that kind of stuff. But anyways, I don't even remember what I was talking about when I first started this, but... this is my, I guess, my surviving part of my Suburban collection, and so we'll see if this carburetor works. If I can find where I put all my stuff. There it is. So it's definitely working on garden tractors. Was a much cheaper hobby than farm tractors and stuff, but I guess. I'm trying to get this one ready to go. I've got a big buzz saw. I need to chop down some wood I use to heat my my wood stove in my chicken coop. And the logs I got for free, the firewood that was already dried and split and everything that somebody gave me. It was about 3 inches too long. So rather than do what most people would do of probably just use a chainsaw and cutting it down, or a skill saw, I of course went and found a big gigantic buzzsaw with a flat belt. I don't know if any of you are like me that make everything more difficult than it needs to be. So I'll show you the progress here, and I'll stop the video and then I'll pick it up again once I'm done with it. Because right now it's just going to be tedious work of putting on the gas line and all that kind of stuff. So I'll let you know when I'm done. What I had to do here is the choke cable's kind of getting all sticking. I think I got it working pretty good now. So I just sprayed some penetrating oil up on all the way along and kind of worked it a few times to get it in. Seems to be working pretty good now. So I'll keep working away, putting it back together, and we'll see what happens. Well, it hasn't sounded that good. I don't think ever since I've had it. It always seems to surge when it was idling and want to stall out. I thought about trying to show you how to set the carburetor while it's running, but then I thought, well, it's sounding over the recording and you won't be able to hear it anyway. You always want to start with your high speed. You want to run the engine as fast as it'll go. And on the bottom of the carburetor here is that set screw. You want to slowly turn it out until you start to hear the engine load up like it's getting too much gas. Kind of get a sense of where that is, and then go back in until you feel it start to lean out too much where it's struggling to get enough gas, and then find yourself back out somewhere in the middle there, maybe just a little bit on the richer side. And then after that you want to idle it down and start with your set screw up inside here on the top that sets how far back your idle will go, which indicates how much of a lucky water slide flows inside the throat of the carburetor. I usually will screw that in until it pushes the throttle out a little bit and runs maybe about half speed, and then I'll back it down to where it's not much good idle. And then, so Noah, my son, my youngest, joined us out here. You want to say hi, Noah? And he wants to help Dad today, so you gotta be careful with your muffler here. By the way, I started wearing gloves when I work out on stuff because I smash my fingers every time or cut them or burn them. So right up the side, here's your low speed. You want to kind of do the same thing again on the high speed in the sense of try to find the middle where it's keeping enough gas to keep it going and not stalling out. You may have to keep it choked a little bit to keep it from stalling so you get things adjusted. That's how you set the carburetor. So check it out and see how it works on the if I get that belt thing to work or not with the saw wheels. I don't know if it's just me or if this happens to any of you, but when I got this thing parked in the garden